Thank you. This says, come, come. Okay, thank you. Let's break finish. Tang so bottle. Dela karesna. Tende te ja ane te jane. So ke te nyone te kan kana te sem te sulu te koran te Then Koran ke mewa chan do kapsala ni te jimba ngo ta semaye te ke te la Koran yo mare te ina te jimba maji ta ta ngo o te ne te yan te ni tin jola kama nga san ne mo to patong te tomam sa ti kan se yan ne mo to ge meditation walking meditation in guys. And then I keep told, do not think I need people. And it got it compagio capsula. Ta yela ta yuna ta nankala ta nima cadeto to the maiba. Ta compagent in the Semte compatela semte. Ta medo candidato yata ta him to
So Gongtate, so Dampote Che, Katu Ram Dine Chilo Letter.
I get love, thank you for my
Young
Kama, the garrison, Nashi Tower, don't know Kama single who have come.
Okay.
Any Nashi Tower, don't know any thing I need to do. So don't see Korea, Korani. And then Nashi Tower, Madonna Kora some
Okay. So she said, now we'll meditate again, and this time the method that we'll use is sound, being attentive to the sound. So she'll ring the singing bowl and just have your attention on the sound. Hold your attention there and notice the progression of the sound as it goes from loud and then tapers off and then gradually disappears. Recognizing the empty nature of sound, that it appears, it arises, and it dissolves all on its own, and so there's no essence there. It's the union of sound and emptiness. But you don't need to think about that, just noticing and holding your attention to the sound, but also seeing its empty nature until it tapers off. And then we'll sit for about 5 minutes, and then Drupon La will get up and we can follow her, and she'll go outside and we'll do a little bit of walking meditation, circumambulating the temple, or I think circumambulating the temple, but we'll follow her. And she said, when depending on how hot it is, if it's hot, she'll just do 2 circumambulations, and if it's not so hot, we can do 3. But as you're walking, just keep your attention focused on the process of walking, lifting your foot, bringing your foot down, touching the earth, lifting the other foot. And so you're not kind of enjoying the pleasure of being outside, looking at the nice flowers, looking at the sky, sort of not becoming distracted by what's around, but really just keeping your attention there, collected, and there with the process of walking. So that's how you can meditate when we go outside. So again, bringing your attention to the posture, straight, lengthening the spine, relaxing into the posture, alert but relaxed. Let your feet or your legs just relax and drop into, resting or sitting.
So, compa is zone you jo koranzo. Nang chalon do sound chalon do. And the con shibana, so ye, you matachi. This chalon do sound nang only can do the walking meditation.
So now we will do some walking meditation. So for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, if you have a space where you can walk outside, and if you prefer to go outside, you can go outside, or you can also walk either back and forth or in a circle, in your home. And just like she said before, not looking around and kind of noticing the different things that you see, but really keeping your attention with the process of walking, the sensation in your feet, the movement of your feet, and holding your attention there. So you can walk a little bit slowly, and also you can hold your hands, either be clasping them behind your back or kind of holding them in front, or whatever way is most comfortable for you and the least distracting.
Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Good work and meditation. Ini
So in all of these different, what we've done is we've sort of tried out all these different types of meditation. So what's your feeling? Do some of you feel like you like one better than another, or you want to share?
I have another question also.
Uh-huh.
I really like sound meditation, but I realize that when I hear a bird, I think, oh, a bird. Or I'll hear an engine and think, oh, an engine. Or when we're walking and my feet touch the grass and say, oh, the grass feels good. So I've become aware that I'm applying labels to these thoughts. Is that something that should be avoided? Should you just experience the experience without attaching a label to it?
Tini di dra gomya di gawo yore la song tini penanga so komba gawe ka la tini di yang dra la te so gong yore wa yene yang de sem nanga de chi ngo zen yore wa pena karsi chiu chi kona tini sem o di chiu re la kore wa yang na tina di mota ge engine chi kuta chi kona o di mota re to sem la kore wa yang na Simla Sangare. I'm sorry, and you said, what did you say about your feet? Or there was I was
touching the grass.
Touching the grass,
yeah,
like this is
good,
pleasant. Yes. Yeah. Then yang kamba yang sala tubna, oh di yang tesa kipudu, tenda samgarawa. Then chitang sim ming tagarawa samala. Then nuni chininga to gong ya de ming mataya la betsunche gogare yang na the main
tas na tate locus ringa to da de jakushima main talan de Virginia re de sare de dore de control ya mares tate ya mares de dore sha na so gom sinye de namju kompa de te mo ko do yene kompa jable shira chogma ro de ta ka se ro do yena sen de solo la yen sa kompa de ha ko ta kompa jan ro ga o danga kompa de te tsare sha te dor de mo de ke ko sa de jigeri yena di ji sen tang ya yo ma ta te ya gom de
so
yena ji sen tang o ta te mo de de ka do de ta ya ta te tsare do kandren me to ka se na di ji sen tang ya yo ma ta nga de ko pa po do tsar to so de sorwate gom de sorwate lo ta ti ji tsare na kandren de tsar to so tsare na do kandren na de me to ka se na dharma ka se na sam de ji sen tang ya yo ma de na po ra na to ta se de ya de nga de ro sha na de ya gom de.
So she said, as far as like, so labeling, you notice that we're assigning labels to things, and that gets noticed. That's okay. That's kind of part of the process, but you just notice that that's happening. And then you don't follow after and make more of it. So you don't follow the thread of that the label tends to lead to. Right? So she said, actually, again, what you're doing is a sign of meditation, because ordinarily when we walk, we're actually not hardly noticing anything. We're kind of lost in thoughts. And so we're not really, or if we notice, it's quick and we're not even noticing that we're noticing. So what's happening for you is you're slowing down and you're paying attention, and then you're noticing things. Oh, that's an engine. Oh, that's a bird. Oh, it feels pleasant on the grass. So that is part of the process of noticing, which is good, but you don't want to go, you are recognizing what the mind does, right? But you don't want to then elaborate from there. Oh, that's a car. That's an engine. What car? Let me see where. What kind of car is it? Where are they going? Right? Oh, it feels pleasant. So we're watching the process of the mind, which tends to react with, oh, this is pleasant. This is not pleasant. So you're noticing it feels pleasant to touch the grass. I'm noticing that my mind is saying this is pleasant. but I'm not then being like, oh, like I, want to stay on the grass, and what else is going on here? How many flowers? Are there pebbles? What's, you're not following the thread that might elaborate further. So that's essentially, and definitely we're going to notice what the mind does, and that's part of the process of meditation. That's the strengthening of awareness, becoming more aware of what the activity of the mind is like. So we notice, but we also sort of stay sensitive to the hook, the fact that we then tend to get carried away and go further and elaborate or follow after the discursiveness that arises. And if that following after happens, then it just becomes thinking. So we want to stay with the awareness, which is aware when the thoughts arise, but not get carried away by the thoughts.
So I like the mantra breath meditation, and also like the walking meditation. And I actually combined the two when we did the second lap. But I have a question: is the walking meditation was the meditation where I had really the least amount of thoughts. It was really just kind of peaceful out in nature. So is there such thing as a good and bad meditation? So like, is a bad meditation one where you have lots of thoughts? Or, I guess how do you determine a good or bad meditation?
Dini kom gasho ni di komba yaya dang dorje deba. Dini nune chini di dambo kana dambo kora chikya. Dini nipa di dorje deba dang nyamdu tes chi yorwa. Dini di gasom yini yang kong ge nyamyong la di komba gyawe kala dini namdo nyungsho re tes simholo yore rangchingi koryu dini yang namdo shara mambo mendo. Dini chia tang di gom yapo dang dupo che yorebe penangato namdo manga yona gom dupo re la tukerebe namdo nyungwa yena yagere la tukerebe di gom yaga duga gande hako yore.
Le tampo pala te namto te nyon tanya ka tafi gores. Ta ya gom yapo che posona namto de mang ya yores. Namto de chugungo tors. Ko namto rancha randro chugungo penna timba nankal timba tanko yore. Tim nangal timba yode timba de timsa de nankal tango ro. Dina hi namto de sen temdo ya mato namto sinye de ro no sandro. Chayong le ta tinye landa. Kompa na yi kompa jan chelle yin o namto le so namto ro so de de yo mara. Koran shergono challenge sen chango then le tambo pala yang ngarala kanga chunyo yo kains le tambo pa nampo chan chade de kale do gomte je jago chinte no den yan dambele ne kora ja yan de ka go chinte cheglep kaya mdo ko je de ma shi de Jig Nampo Jilla de Gagutina, Gagutin, Semtin Chapo Chatter. And it Garrison, a pursuit of Pondo, Chapo and a pursuit of Pondo Chat. That day Gagutin, Yan Jilla de Gagutin, rang a church in order. Yena at the Namto land called the Yates, Misoja. I yajar kama check the mouth of Modena. Sure, German Sipe. Hajanga tanga gom posa mares tsawani yamashit. Tanga jagan shu pusutabu maiba. Sakama chase ya setting on Karena penna do the deal and did in the summer. Lhasa Kunda and didn't walk it on in a walk mola. Young Kamatis. So for the shuru, the answer walk on is on the in a unique on. Bear Charis. Didn't I up Gomia Popo on the town Tombo letter? Namto chicken or children. Namto the Kaya Yaman. For Namto de Jimba Nashira. Nankala hoting it and Jimba the Chigiri. In the young Jimba the maid or the motto. What in the dodo the dehimada.
So there's a bit of a like paradox here, she said, because there isn't actually such a thing as good and bad meditation. However, as a beginner, we are working towards kind of settling the mind and calming the discursiveness of the mind, and we do gradually move towards, fewer thoughts. However, when one gets more advanced in meditation, actually, the more thoughts you have, the better. They become an ornament to the meditation because you're so deeply stable in awareness that what then ends up happening is that the thoughts are recognized as the display of what we refer to as display of dharmakaya. So it's just like, the energy, the dynamic energy of awareness itself. And one is completely aware of the thoughts as they arise and they dissolve, but it does no harm to our awareness. Our awareness is remaining, and there's no hook, there's no getting caught up. And it's just like thoughts are understood to be just a natural expression of the mind, just like clouds are a natural expression of the sky. So clouds arise out of the sky, they dissolve back into the sky, and they without ever harming the sky. So thoughts, but this is really actually at a pretty advanced level when you're able to meditate in this way where the thoughts don't create any delusion. They don't do any harm to the meditation because you're aware of, just like clouds arising and dissolving, there's just the experience of sustaining awareness within whatever it is that arises on its own and is liberated on its own. So, and then it becomes also what is referred to as liberation upon arising. They arise and then they dissolve just upon arising. So she said, and there's no grasping there. That's the key, right? It's just like a reflection in a mirror, recognizing that it's a reflection, and there's no fixation, there's no grasping. But as a beginner, and she said, and it can be really challenging at first. She herself remembers, when she first started meditating, how difficult it was because it's just this endless flow of mental chatter, one after another. And there's this thought, like that you want to sort of calm the thoughts and not have so many thoughts, but it's just one after another. And she said, and you can get into a thing where you're trying, one thought arises, you try to suppress that thought, and then another one arises and you try, and the image that came to my mind when she was speaking was like whack-a-mole, and there's no way to ever be, it's just, we can't suppress thoughts. It's the nature of the mind to think. But she said, so the problem is when we're trying to control the activity of the mind, then we get tight, and then we get, we become tight, and we create kind of problems for ourselves in our meditation through over tightness and over efforting. But when we have, so she said the better way is to, like she said, you don't want to be completely relaxed so that you're just following after the thoughts. You really have to find sort of the right balance between caution to not get carried away by the thoughts or really sustain your awareness, but also being relaxed, and not getting uptight about the thoughts as they arise. So she said sometimes what's helpful too is, so you definitely don't want to get into trying to suppress the thoughts, but like looking, whatever, and she said, whatever your object it is, relying on kind of the support of that object. So like if you're meditating on an image of the deity, if you're using a pebble, and resting your awareness and your gaze on the pebble, if you're following the breath, if you're looking at the essence of awareness itself, sort of staying with that object, allowing it to support you and coming back, whenever you get lost. And then also kind of having some alternating so that it's not like you're overly focusing for really long periods of time, but you're meditating, you're focusing for a time, you're really staying with the object, and then you're kind of relaxing a little bit and then coming back to the object. So just being skillful with yourself, being skillful with your meditation in this way. And then she said, when you really gain some momentum in your practice, then there's really, at a higher level of realization, there's nothing to do whatsoever. There's no effort needed to diminish the thoughts or, to try to sustain some sort of meditation. It's just that the awareness of the empty essence is sustained. So you're abiding within awareness, and there's no difficulty in holding that awareness, and whatever it is that arises is seen as the same essence of awareness itself. And so then whatever thoughts that arise, they're liberated upon arising, because you see their empty essence, because you're not losing awareness. So, just like clouds, she said, forming and dissolving into the sky itself.
Thank you. At the beginning of our last session, before the break, you have mentioned the word refuge, or refuge.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say more about it?
Dini ji nato dampo ko tsukju dini kyabdro gi kwela chik sum yarawa.
Yeah.
Ni kyabdro seya di gi kwela jes sum no.
Kyabdro seya de da. Nangpa sanje pa yin zongde. Ni sanje koncho ordination, sanje koncho chu koncho gendo koncho. Isn't just an over it. Sanje koncho de motoke. Karasin land tum keke tumpa di chade. Chu konjo te any lam drebzi ke langan dona lam drebzi ke to do chade. Lam drebzi lam to pan chade. Any gendo konjo te so lam ya pon do gona. Any gendo konjo te lam ya po do lam do na chi. Kana mod langa je sajan do gon. Kawan dogo nga kawan dogo den langa chukol chi masomba lam deni pandona den yasa tela lego deni den lam to ba ko o den is in namba sanje ba sanje ko de chi ko jo den ko so ja ko.
So refuge, is a term that we use, that we refer to specifically as Buddhists. Once you have identify as a Buddhist practitioner, like part of what becoming Buddhist involves is really taking refuge in what we refer to as the three jewels. So the three jewels being the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the Buddha is for instance, there are many levels of understanding what Buddha means, but on an outer level, it's the historical Buddha, the example of the Buddha who showed that there is a path to awakening and manifested that awakening himself. And so he is the guide, the ultimate guide, the teacher that is the example, right, of awakening. So we take refuge in the Buddha, the jewel of the Buddha, then the refuge in the Dharma, and Dharma is really the path. So it's the path that leads to awakening, that is the path that we traverse as a means to arrive at that understanding that the Buddha arrived at. So then that's the jewel of the path, or the Dharma. And then the Sangha are the companions on the path. So it's, for instance, like if we're using the path as the example, well, if we are taking a path, we want to, in order to be able to traverse that path, we want to go with other companions, people who have some experience or knowledge of the path themselves. So somebody who's has some familiarity can say, oh, here, when you get halfway down the path, you need to take like this turn, and then you go here and you go there, because they have some knowledge, some understanding, so they become our companions. So the Sangha are the companions or practitioners who are our companions on our path, to the spiritual path of awakening. And so that's what refuge is. Is there anybody on Zoom who has a question? Or we have some others.
So I don't like the sound, the when you feel the sound, the meditation. For me, is when you do it, and I keep waiting for, oh, when's the next sound coming? I'm gonna wait for the next sound coming. So I couldn't even relax. I just get very anxious. I'm anticipating the next sound to come. So that's, but when walking, I think it's a lot of distraction for me. But I find that when I walk, I started counting. I just counted, 1 to 10 to focus back on my steps. That was very helpful for me. But I don't know whether will be counting considered as another distraction, or would it be just having no thoughts so that you can just concentrate on your steps?
Is there a way to turn the sound down, or like it's a little bit hard? Oh, okay. Or maybe just close the door.
Yeah, let's do that.
So, the laboratory, dra de shra gama song gayan sena dra shimba chik vekere samgyurwa the yang so isim tesa yingyurwa yamcha chik vekere gadu vekere jawo tinda nang sing the sim ne tu yomarwa the yapo ne tu yomare dala adi gama song yang the komba Kyape Tuzula yang sim as a yingyore. Then sim yingi yoba kitchen la tene dranga gyaya go to bare. Then chick chu bardu pena sim tes nea chidu in danang chinche bare. In danang chinchina digere yang nama china yabe.
Sim yinkadu samyate gombris. It's over there. Kinds in sim yinkadu tanga compa tranga jago. Condition Namto picture, they go magician down the way. Semi could do some of their gom chatter. They have called Namtiona Compadia, don't I jardina. Semi could have home. So a dogma. I think also Compadia and do it. Tanga semi could do some little swallow. Then lay up it gone.
So she said, actually, the thing that becomes meditation is recognizing that your mind is distracted. So when you're walking and then you become distracted and I'm distracted, and you're recognizing the distraction. She said, normally when we walk, we don't even think twice. We don't think, am I distracted or not distracted? We're just distracted. So the process of noticing your distraction is actually meditation. So you don't have to, think, I need to pull my mind in, so I'm going to count. You don't have to follow after that thought. Just noticing each time you notice that the mind is distracted, that recognition itself is meditation.
Dratela go me left Moran Carella Namjo Gomya, Compagaya, Dra, the network on that Joe San Nopaya to some drama doesn't it? And I hear in and so carry Ganamato, not touch the teaching to your mother. So calm the mupa, pen a pender yagan. Mothers of Kakari, son of Nota. Kinds of Kake, Calendar, Kake, Napoga, Kake, Sepoga, edition touching the day and Jimmy Diabo, your mother. So the Tinani, in Nano Meshe, yes, and Kare Gayan, Compagaya, the Gomia Pocho Possum, many worked on it.
And she said, and if you feel that sound, resting on the awareness of sound doesn't work for you, you don't have to use that method. She said, really, she's introduced all these different methods to you in a kind of all at once, so that you can experiment and see, what feels like the most comfortable. Because people are so different. We all have different inclinations, dispositions, likes and dislikes. She said it's just like some people like the color red, some people like the color yellow. So it's kind of like in your meditation, you can whatever you feel drawn to, what feels like it works best for you, then you can go with that. If walking meditation you feel like was really helpful, or a method that you kind of resonated with, go with walking meditation. If you prefer to just follow the breath, follow the breath. If you like visualizing the image of the Buddha, if that seems most effective, then go with that. So there are all these different methods that we can use, as our methods of meditation.
So jikten kapel yore. Musum chuyuna. Samba sumjuri, samo bonda kaka tignaris. And then zo sumjuna tayala la shendiri. Ya sumjuna rajo trukyo yoris. Kola. Ni yora trukyo. No dende chadu koran de karasan. Mere samo bonda kaka kanda muba kaka yori mato. Tikite.
So it's important to recognize just the diversity of, what are sort of different dispositions and inclinations. She said there's a saying in Tibetan, which is, if you have 30 people, you have 30 different opinions, right? And she said, if you have 30 yak, you have 60 horns, so there's really different ideas and different styles of learning and training, and so not everybody's going to be the same. It's not just a one size fits all. So you really do what resonates, what works for you.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I know I'm following your thoughts and following the stories, but I like it so much. I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
So is there like a quick phrase or something to hack through that?
Nune chini di kana sim samlo tangirawa, tani yang goju la sopa dramandra yorawa samlo tangi. Tani di yang di jesu drama yo mare ha kogi yore yini yang nune chini di samlo tanga gabo yore kipo do. Nune chini tani sidi jesu drango samba lev girawa. Tani nune di chapa di kana o ma di samlo tango samba di cheya ki chidu mixa Kapchi mixa chayure.
Samno tanya la gapo yuna karasina. Ta samno tanya mansona tini nyoda simbo yores. Ati kertan samno tango sango mare legaris. Ko kago sana ka thuga maris. Raji yama ni digris. Yena samno tanya gapo yun. Samno tanya kare gawo yuna. Lekal gawo yu samno tanya. Lobjong chia samno tanya gawo yu. Name yapo yunya ke samno tanya gawo yu kare yus.
So she said, actually, there's a lot of problems that come from thinking. Actually, if we really watch, what happens in the mind. But she said, and it isn't like so it's like you don't want to get caught in thinking you need to cut through, you need to stop thinking. You also want to watch the tendency to get caught up in the thinking and refrain from getting caught up. You just sort of let the thoughts do their thing as they arise, but the main thing is awareness. So you watch and they'll disperse on their own, but not following the thread, right? So she said, what is it that you like about, like, what's the content? Do you like to think about work? Do you like to think about your family? Do you like to think about study? Do you like to think about dharma? Like, what is it that's happening that's making you want to think?
So it's a lot of times it's like whatever I'm thinking, I look at all the options. I have to think about everything. And then it stops at some point and something else will happen. Like, for example, can I go on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, for example, before we started the thing, we said we would do refuge. We didn't do the refuge.
We didn't do the refuge prayer.
I think we did not.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So then I think, did we just forget? Or maybe she knows already that we didn't do it, but like if I say I didn't do it, then it's just it goes on and on like that. Like I look at all different options.
The whole plan.
Dene chitang de pena sim de samno tangtang dendare de pena de tapshi sangmala tagerwa pena chik june chik china dendare yang mena chik china dendare yang na chik china dendare dene yang nune chine samno tangtang it's kipo those or yore pen pena dering ngato go to do dene chiki ngato chamro dongere songyewa niang ngato chamro donyo mare dene mo samsung ngato chamro 원송에 도만 송에 나도 제 여러배 양나 콩하 고네 드니 양데 제 힘센 라와 제 여러배 드니 양 참로 라면 라만 보통 여러와 중 드니 데네 셴바 중 드니 제수랑 여러와 드니 제수랑야라 태사 comfortable 라와
예스 타야라 든제 산나만 보당 든제 응여다티 라사 가셰 셈나 Tuna hisana ko khode ke yores kaje la pe ni so gyan na thong sen ro do ke yores na thong sen ro de yare pasang ke yang sem chu sana ma po tang hi de yang le de yores le de na de no so sem la ngar so do so nam tyo na ta tre za ni ma de pin pare le de kapala ma ta ke ni khala do ma ze yapo tinang lule ti degola do ta semna ngaso ya ti gom chade yore ten arang ke samno ma po khosin te long jengo de samno tang ti se de na ti zo po de tang sen de tang pe ya po chare.
So she said well it's like she mentioned before that there are different propensities, so some people have more like busy minds, monkey-like minds, and some people have more sleepy minds, they're more prone to kind of dozing off or getting kind of dull. So those who are more prone to dullness, then they counteract that by straightening the posture and really kind of brightening the awareness. She said, and then those who are more prone to mental activity, like that feels comfortable, right? Then you focus on relaxing. So really, instead of getting caught in the thoughts, relax the body and then motivate yourself to find mental rest. So like, here's an opportunity to just rest from thinking a little bit, resting the mind. And she said, because, and it's sort of like, taking your day off, like during the weekend, if we work all week and then we have the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we're really just letting ourselves rest and take it easy. We're not like looking at our phones so much, we're not like getting, super busy, but we're really allowing ourselves to just take the weekend off and really unwind and relax. So that's what you're doing for your mind when you're meditating. So it's kind of inviting that space for rest to your attention, to your mind.
Marang ta tinje sana ma po tang de tin ta mola namela kanga tang leka la kanga mil garden ma to ta yinda domhan je yu khiti sana tang ene pe kanga chere te lolo ma chana.
She said, but
marang kale tia me ta maranga ti jiranda nga sana ta ya gapo yo te a tena tipo yo san te ke jiranda.
So she said, you're fortunate because she said it clearly if your propensity is one that's more mentally active, like a propensity for thinking, a lot of people who have a propensity for thinking, it goes to the problems, so it actually can cause a lot of suffering, like, oh my gosh, this is going wrong, and there's that, and the family, and and there's all of the, or my work, and the stress, and the problems of the workplace, and then the mind, the thinking takes the mind to a place of a lot of suffering. So she said, but you're kind of happy in nature, so then you are thinking a lot, but you're enjoying thinking, it's not maybe bringing so much suffering. But she said, for a lot of people, that actually ends up really being painful or difficult, that the propensity of thinking a lot.
Just for our daily practice, I noticed we do 5-minute sessions. Does she recommend 5 minutes? Like, what is the recommendation for a beginner?
Yeah. The Ledang Popa, Penangaso Tata, the Penagom Gaya. Ledang Popa. Ledang Popa?
Ledang Popa. Ledang Popa.
Ledang Popa, Lalo Kamareve. Beginner. Dampo go Ledang Popa, Lalo Kamareve.
Oh, beginning. Ledang Popa.
Ledang Popa.
Ledang Popa, Le Karma. Popa, that means
so my pronunciation, she was not understanding that I was saying beginner.
Okay,
she thought I was saying le, which is karma, and popa, which is confidence. So, and dong means and, so she thought I was saying karma and confidence. But I was saying le dong popa. So yena, tini di katse pena rang nang la yona, tini ning tapar gom go samna, tini ringtung gatse che ayore pena ngaso tata karma ngare che yoroa, tini soso chi tena ringtung tun che gona, tini ringtung gatse che pokare le dang popa yena.
Le tang popa.
Tang popa, yeah.
There la karesana. That's also the truth. Me drums a cheese and lap to the man. Karesana, Koran's nana leka you the submina, make the chutu check the dead to learn a jimara. And it got nana shopa and suso chitin, leka let's a cellular. And he come out dead and cured dead and not suso. Renshi has some go in a day. They should. Rinpoche data come to the penalties on a Saki Kagana. Saki Kagana corresponds. Let them pop at it. Let the pop at it. Let them pop at it. Regan Choma Balina Hiris. Pen Cho Regan man by the pen. Your pocket demon. Sharps and Rogra. More than Hiris. And it she net the piece a ya chasona. And it Yongcha Nashiris, Yongcha, I shot it, then Dendrina, Pech Harps and Rora, Degmara, Pet Nampo, Tia than Jupun Red. And it is Yakochasan, Yongcha and Tem Papa. Then each Chine Yakochasana, Yamso Nashiris, Yamso the Como them, Dera, and it ended. Oh, ended. This was so Nana, a gamma tailor death and neat and she need death and the cheering by near me by. And it track of my child. Near Mamma Pumande. The Pinto Mampote son. Kansina, who sent the son of Mampo down to it. Then it some Nasa tell it you younger. Not half woman. Oh, not a Nasa lashes is a letter. My Nasa letter. Because it's the chat and chip up a given true. And not that left. Then Chin and Yimako, Kalas and Proami, and did her.
So she said it's really difficult to say, like she can't say, oh, this amount of time is best. It's really something you kind of want to feel out for yourself. And also it's dependent upon your routine, right? So like if you go to work, how much time can you make for yourself in the morning? And then also, you know, how much you can build up. You can start at something that feels doable and then gradually extend it so that it becomes longer and longer. And she said, you know, in the beginning, it can be really difficult because there's so much activity that we become aware of in the mind. In fact, in the Ganges Mahamudra, which is a famous text or short text on the meditation on Mahamudra, it says in the beginning the thoughts are like a waterfall. like a waterfall falling from a high cliff. There's just like no interruption. The pace is very fast. There's just this sort of relentless, just like water falling from a high cliff. It's like there's no end to the thoughts, just one after another, right? But then as we stick with it, gradually then it says in the middle, it becomes like the slow and steady flow of a stream or like a river. So it's no longer like a waterfall, but it's still, there's a lot of movement there. There's still one thought after another, but it's a little bit slower and like less, kind of aggressive, if you will, but it's like the slow flow of a wide river. Then in the end, it becomes like a still like vastness of the ocean. So somebody who becomes really advanced in meditation, then it really becomes like the experience of like a still ocean. And that, where the mind really becomes deeply calm and still and clear. And so it really, in the beginning, however much, we can rest the mind, then we allow that process of settling the mind and meditating as much as we can, and then extending periods of meditation over time, and eventually, it will become easier and easier to rest. And there's such great benefit, like if you really develop meditative concentration, if you really practice shamatha, calm abiding, there are great health benefits. Like she mentioned before, the humors or the elements of the body become balanced. There's kind of not the whatever imbalances there might be between the humors of wind, bile, and phlegm kind of become balanced. Sometimes those who are like really advanced practitioners, their hair sometimes doesn't even turn gray. They don't really have wrinkles, so it can be, have that kind of benefit too. She said, but because we don't notice what a toll thinking takes on us, like both mentally and physically, because we think so much. A lot of our illness comes from thinking. So there's so much benefit in learning to rest the mind, that brings a lot of health benefits. And, those who also, helping to like be able, like if there's insomnia or difficulty sleeping, like a lot of that comes from too much thinking, right? So if we learn to meditate, if we can really calm the mind, then it just brings a lot of balance to our lives. Sorry.
I have a question.
Okay. Victoria was been waiting for there's another Zoom question. We are actually over time, so
okay.
I don't know if we have time for questions. Is it okay to go over a little bit?
I think the dusu lips are yorwa yini ang dadung driwa kashe do deni yang is digere.
Okay, thank you. So Victoria, please go ahead. I believe there's someone else.
Thank you so much. First, really grateful with all this. I have a question about the daily practice, because I do, like at morning earlier, and sometimes when I'm doing the practice and I'm doing the mantras, I really connect with the sound of the mantra. No, I know the meaning, but I don't think in the meaning or the beauty of the sound or nothing. No, it's just, I don't know if it's the vibration or what, but really there is no thoughts. It's like how she described that state of no thoughts. No. So when I'm in that state, I feel like, oh, I should to be like visualizing Guru Rinpoche. Oh, I should to be like asking for compassion and, and all that. So I feel like I'm not doing the practice because I get in that state. So I wanted to ask if there is a difference between the meditation or the practices with the deities and the mantras. And, I do, I work in medicine field. So I work a lot with the medicine Buddha, and there's a lot of people that I need to pray about, But then I get in that state of no thoughts, and I feel like guilty. So I start to, I should be visualizing, the medicine Buddha. healthier, So thank you.
Dini kongi pena so morangi nyamlin so nga rangyora nga rangyore sa cherem kongi sare. Dini kongi nyamnyong na pena di nga kita di la tene. Dini samsam na namdo meba nangla negiore. Yene yang dini detsom legiore pena oh nune chini nga gurum bachi bongo. Yang na ningji che go, yang na monam gya go, sampa detsom rawa le gerawa, ena di namto neba nangla nena yabo mendo, nune nga chik che go, rawa sampa le gerawa. Na dini yang pena mo gi lega, mingkang mingi lega re, dini denda la tene de menla mambo gongyo re, dini yang neba mambo yang kongso la monam gya go samgyo rewa, dini nga rangwe kala, dini menlam gomna, dini sam denda de sim de ku simbo namto meba nangshin chagi rewa, dini oh di digimendo monam gya go sambala rewa, dini nga rangya cherem gongya pena denda nangshin cha na yabo rebe denda nangshin gom chogere re pena shine nangshin
cherem tiga la gongya pena tata nge Lhasa di soso dene la do tarang deni samno tang de la de ba ni koran cherem sine de la sine na hiri de mora ke namto chia mi pa cha di nga de sanje mi la sango tu samya ti sem de do o de samya de gomris jinshi jin pa de shi yin go ra ben de ndu chirang pe ya forest de ni di inkana ne pa ta so no ne chirang ke sancho samsi de de da nang ba sin de chi nga chi po deo chi po in samya mai po sinji tham che la ni khang na le ka che ka ta so la ne sanje mi na nga chi koran to ja tu so na koran so ni son so na do ma ra den de chi ne po no de pe ya po res
yene yang kong pena de nga rangne namto meba nangla ne na o denda nangshin che na yabore sam gogere be yang na pena di lama gom na yang di namto meba nga kangmai kabla namto meba nangla gom na
namto ta re jam da yore pe na thom se cha kang jiya mi pa de chas na den de ma re ya de ya jin hi ti bo ko kan sin ta shine ting bo la ye de ta pe na thom se cha ma de de ta gom ja na cha kang ma de ni ko le na thom cha so de ya re pa sa tang tata wa sam tangora shine tengola de yang de mare de intu ani ya repasar tenje te gores.
So she said actually so the generate
di kapsalo gonda sem sapo ngane tene sa wa yin ba ong ba yin ba sa tang song de jo ba je yin de ge de na thom se这个面拿桶的做什么？这样呀，这些地方是少人的下过来。现在订不起来嘛？
So she said, first of all, the generation stage, which is meditating on the visualized image of a deity and reciting mantra, is a form of shamata, like it is a form of calm abiding meditation. And we are using, the visualization to rest our awareness on, much as these other methods that she demonstrated, that's where we're resting the attention instead of getting distracted and wandering to other things. So what's happening for you is very good. And then also she said, even when you're remembering like if you're practicing Medicine Buddha, for instance, and then you remember, oh, I should be thinking of Medicine Buddha, I should be meditating on Medicine Buddha, or I should say prayers for my patients. That's also kind of mindfulness, mindful awareness. So that's okay too. That's good too. And especially, having the intention to benefit others through your practice, very important, very wonderful. You're not just thinking of yourself like, oh, I want to feel good and relax and be benefited from my practice, but you're focusing on, the importance of generating bodhicitta. And then if you can also even bring your practice to your workplace, even reciting, for instance, medicine Buddha mantra, if your patients hear that, the power of just hearing the mantra like entering the faculty of hearing, has inconceivable benefits. It can protect beings from the lower realms. It can really plant the seed of awakening. So to want to benefit others through in that way is a very virtuous thing. She said, it is, whether you want to like change from having just, mantra recitation and no activity or you're not following after thoughts. Maybe you're in a state of like, sort of thoughtless meditative absorption. Whether you want to stay with that or move to, for instance, I need to think of the deity, visualize the deity. What sort of determines that, she said, is that, there can be thoughtless states that we enter into, which is actually not the kind of meditation that we're wanting to cultivate. Because sometimes if it's just sort of like a dull, thoughtless state, where there's not like a lot of clarity of awareness, we're just kind of zoned out. And maybe there's not a lot of activity of thoughts, but we're also not very present. We're not very clear. That is a certain type of meditative absorption that signals kind of going astray in your meditation. So you don't want to just fall into that. You don't want to encourage that. You want to bring the clarity of awareness. So if you're falling into a sort of dull space of thoughtlessness, then you want to direct your awareness in such a way that like, maybe you're instead bringing the clarity of the deity to your meditation, or you're brightening the awareness. If, on the other hand, you're in a state that doesn't have much mental activity, but your awareness is very bright, there's like vividness and clarity and an absence of thought, that's good. You can just stick with that and you don't have to create something else, but there has to be that discrimination, whether it's kind of like a dull state of thought, absence of thoughts, or it really is, kind of the union of clarity and emptiness where we're without many thoughts, but our awareness is very vivid.
And I believe Samantha had a question as well. Samantha, did you want to ask your question?
It's from Eleanor. If Drupon, could you please say a few words about impermanence and time?
Impermanence and time?
Yes.
Ini di mitapa gikorla dang dutsu dang mitapa gikorla cheksin na.
Dutsu da.
So what do you mean by time?
Eleanor?
Dutsu dang.
Time that we all think of as it's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. But impermanence, it seems to be imbued with everything, as is time. I mean, if time stops, there's no impermanence. So I'm trying to understand that whatever that relationship is between time and impermanence.
Nyamdu dawo yorowa. Tene pena keche gyori Yini yang deep garsi dutu ga na meba chadna. Tene metapa do meba chagere gande de dutu dang metapa ki dawa nang gande yamba nang chi.
Dutu ga de sin yo mare. Metapa sinyete mutoke kain sin na metapa sinyete karesina. Tata ro mutoke ja shedera. so tena yupa zambele no yupa so inare mata pare yina ya tapa mai ba kimchi kares ko tata ngo so kecha shedo te jin sani shoba shed donda manya de shoba shedera ani kares zamda mata pasin jam da yore du mata pa ha yargen yaka chente pe metota ani Shino de Jie, Nanki Chawala, Yamataba. And they young Gakachan, Satam Gam, Metomeba, Yamataba. And they just summon Javatamber. And Marina, and they did that in Oko Katam Mediterranean. This is something. Yen and Sanjay Carson, then Dimbari, pitching in the south, and also geared her. Tambo chetu ngoso nyeng jewa yer sama meto nasi. Ani ya gend meto gengo chandu nasi. Dijin jewa nasi. Dijin matapa chandu res. Yene ya matapa tonki pe kale kapore.
So there's no stopping time, that's for sure, she said, but it is, it is actually, as to your point, like an expression of impermanence, because impermanence is so, as you said, so pervasive. It pervades absolutely everything, and it's happening so fast, moment by moment by moment. As even in the period that we're here speaking, there are all these changes that are happening out in the world, that there's this constant unfolding of an expression of impermanence going around us all the time. And we never, and this in the context of our practice is to remind us of how fleeting our time here is, how each moment is so precious, because we could, there's no telling when we will die. We could go to sleep tonight and not wake up tomorrow. So any moment, there is a possibility for death. And we see how everything is changing. There's no reliability there in the outside world. There's nothing that's solid and permanent whatsoever. We see this in the expression of the seasons, the 4 seasons. It's like there's summer, everything's blooming, there's flowers, it's hot, then it changes, in the winter, everything is cold and dry, and the leaves shrivel up and then fall off the trees, and, we have maybe snow, and then that doesn't last either, and it changes, moment by moment. We see this in the outside surroundings in the most kind of obvious form in the expression of, for instance, the seasons, the changing, moment by moment as the seasons progress one into another. And in our bodies, as we start out like flowers, with the blooming of youth, and then gradually that fades. We become like flowers that wither and sort of shrink up, and then, we experience the withering of old age. And this is something that is natural, the process of impermanence. And we also don't notice subtle impermanence that's happening in everything all around us, moment by moment. Like we think, that we see one person today, we see the same person tomorrow, that person is the same, what we're seeing is the same as what we saw yesterday, but that's not the case, because they, each moment by moment, there's this process of transformation and change that's happening at all times in everything. And so this is the nature of impermanence. To realize impermanence, to really realize impermanence is difficult. That's actually a very high level of realization. Somebody who understands impermanence sees it, in its subtle unfolding moment by moment in a way that's really hard to understand until it's realized.
Okay.
Okay, so we're at the end of our session for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So
So now we really will recite. Recite the Bodhicitta prayer.
Tangpo kecha mangpo she te sanje chuso dong ko sara. Jo ne ngaran te kecha mangsa she jo la. Ne ngaran te po sel na ne sanje chuso ko ne chiran sa ya.
So she said, you know, what happened with the refuge prayer, she did intend that we would all recite together, and she wasn't sure who knew it and who didn't. And she said, and then she said a lot, and then she thought, oh, well, now I've said a lot. So, you know, instead in her mind, she sort of made the refuge prayer, but then we didn't end up doing it together as a group.
I need to. We are all covered.
We're all covered.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah.
Should we? Yeah. Dini Kongso Tsangma Lajana? Sure. What page?
This is a page done, I'm looking. I don't know, usually.
It's probably in the end somewhere. Right.
It's going to be in the opening prayers.
Oh, it would be in the opening prayers? We were thinking at the end.
Oh, maybe not. You're right.
No, but it doesn't seem to be in the end.
Yesterday we did 95, 95.
It was 99. Yeah, that's probably it's short.
This 100. 100. Page 100.
I don't think so.
Oh,
okay, so we'll do something else. Instead, we'll do the dedication prayer by the virtues collected in the 3 times. So she'll do it in that.
Yeah, did it.
You have it?
100.
It's the second line. Second line on it, yeah.
Yanda Barzo Besang Rinpoche To Barjurji.
Yeah.
Okay. By the virtues collected in 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the being root of virtue, and I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, precious enlightenment.
So in then the prayer that begins on 101, glorious, holy, venerable, just in English.
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage dharmas, divine assembly of yams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes and heroines, yogini and assembly of dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, we see you. By the power of the vast root of virtue, and I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, jealousy arise in my mind. May thoughts of honor, fame, reputation, wealth, honor, concern for this life not arise even for a second. May my mind be with spiritual kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain supreme attainment of love that almost spare life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death.
May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused or wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in great May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Lama or even May the teachings of the omniscient Dharma has seen all living beings, masters into dependence, Drikung Kagyu, be upheld through teaching, practice, learning, contemplation, and meditation until the end of existence. Teaching life by showing the unmistaken path that accords with the other teachings of meditation, the teachings of the precious Lord of Drupon, pure and treasure throughout time.
Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow.